Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and I'm joined by attorney Jessup, and we're going to talk about cancer and long-term disability insurance claims and how to put yourself in the best position to not only get approved for long-term disability benefits, but keep your benefits being paid for as long as you believe that you're unable to continue working. And Stephen, as we've seen with many of the claimants that we've represented nationwide who have been diagnosed with all different forms of cancer, is that it's not the initial diagnosis of cancer or the fact that the disability carrier disputes that you have cancer, because there's nothing to dispute there. That the objective evidence is clear when you have that diagnosis. It's a question of, when will you be able to return to work? Why haven't you returned to work? What's preventing you from returning to work? And making the disability carrier understand why you're no longer able to work. So when you're representing claimants who have been diagnosed with cancer, what do you find is the biggest challenge in keeping their benefits from being denied?
Well, generally speaking, 9 times out of 10 if someone contacts us and the diagnosis was cancer, generally they don't have an issue until after, they're quote-unquote in remission, they're cured, whatever the case may be. There's no evidence of the active cancer. At that point, the insurance companies will say, well, if it's clear and you don't have it, why can't you work? And that's usually when you see the denials. They don't really pay much attention to the lingering effect of the treatment, whether it be from a cognitive standpoint, a physical standpoint. They're purely looking at this idea of, is the cancer active? Are you getting treatment for it? If no, generally they'll deny there. So in those situations, the big thing is really trying to refocus the conversation as to how the effects of the medication and the treatment and everything has affected the person. Are they able to go back to work either in their own capacity and any other capacity based on these problems they're still having? And a big obstacle with that can often be is, a lot of times the insurance company will reach out to the oncologist, and the oncologist is really a lot of times only looking at this idea of active treatment, and they don't necessarily, are the person who's going to be filling out claim forms or asserting disability. So the insurance companies will focus on getting an opinion from the doctor if, the person should remain out of work due to the cancer diagnosis. And more often than not, when an oncologist says there isn't any active treatment, that opinion, a lot of times that I see, isn't a yes. So then it's a matter of, who else are they treating with? Are they treating with people still for a lot of these side effects that they're having? Sometimes they say, the doctors say, I just have to wait that the symptoms, should maybe go away. I won't have the fog as much, things like that. So it can be really tricky from a medical perspective to show what the disabling issues still are at that point.
And so a lot of the things we encounter, especially all the people that have gone through chemotherapy, is they talk about what this term that's known as chemo brain or chemo fog. Can you explain what that is and how that is a condition, or not a condition, but a secondary symptom that prevents people from being able to work? And along those lines, it goes to the cognitive limitations that people have and proving those things and how it prevents them from working.
Yeah, and you just said it. It's really, chemo brain is the cognitive after effect of the medication. Generally, the only way to truly verify what that may be is through neuropsychological testing. An insurance company will not take an individual's complaints and reports of having the problem without anything to concrete back it up testing-wise. And neuropsychologists are very sensitive to, when conducting the examination, trying to get to the root cause of it and how the scoring is done to show that this isn't necessarily related to a mental health condition or a traumatic brain injury, but it is actually a side effect of the medication. So neuropsychological testing is a good way to try to establish that.
And when we do when a claimant undergoes the neuropsychological testing, it's designed to show cognitive impairments. It also has another factor to it, which is showing validity of symptoms. And often the validity of symptoms is a person exaggerating, or are they malingering with their condition? And a lot of times the disability carriers will go ahead after a person is in remission or has been under treatment for a while to say, is this person really still having the symptoms that they say they're having? And more often than not, we will recommend that our claimants get this test done before the disability insurance company asks for this type of testing, so that we can get an understanding of what these test results are going to be, number one. Number two, also so that if they do come back favorable, the results in terms of in support of the claim, that we can then present that as further evidence for a person that has a cancer diagnosis. Now, Stephen, for the people who have had their diagnosis and many are in remission but still are unable to return to the job that they once had, how important is it for them to continue treating with their physician?
It's very important, and a lot of times, sometimes the oncologists will only do periodic, kind of updates and check-ins and scans, if you will. So you do need to get into another doctor, whether it be your primary care physician or whatever the recommendation may be, just so that your symptoms and complaints are being documented and you are satisfying the appropriate care provisions of the policy that require you be under the care of a doctor, because your insurance company is going to still require that you fill out claim forms, your doctors, that are going to continue to support those medically necessary work restrictions and limitations.
And many people that we've represented have cancer, and that becomes their primary diagnosis, and that's what they're focused on, and especially with that being a life-threatening condition. Unfortunately, they often have other medical conditions going on as well, which they tend to minimize because you have to, pick which one is the probably the most disabling. But how could it help a person with their claim if they were to seek treatment and present these other medical conditions so that they have a comorbidity that they're presenting to the disability company?
Well, I mean, it's always important if you're establishing disability for all the medical conditions you have, but that is also going to require support from your doctors that those, even in and of themselves, would be disabling, especially if the cancer is in remission. If it's in remission, the insurance company is not going to necessarily look at that as an active diagnosis for purposes of the disability. So if there are other factors that are, preventing you from returning to work that aren't related to side effects of the medication, the treatment, then you have to supply all that information just so the insurance company is taking a look at you as this whole person analysis as to your disability.
And then, Stephen, we often have claimants who experience anxiety or depression secondary to their cancer diagnosis, and that unfortunately continues because their whole life has often been turned upside down by this cancer diagnosis. And the disability carriers will then say, well, you're in remission from your cancer and now you have anxiety and depression, and we're not going to pay you for a cancer diagnosis, and we recognize the anxiety and depression, but that has a limited pay period of 12 months or 24 months because now we're shifting your diagnosis. What arguments do you make to get around this limited pay period of 12 to 24 months when anxiety or depression is secondary to cancer?
You still have to show the underlying physical condition. Just because it's secondary doesn't mean that you don't have to show an underlying physical impediment. And most of these policies will define a mental illness as something that's in the DSM-5 or the most updated diagnostic manual for that. So if it falls in there, it's going to be classified as a mental health condition. Yes, it's secondary to what you experience in cancer and the treatment there, but at the end of the day, you have to still show physical impairment, whether it be from cognitive that can be verified neuropsychological testing, or even sometimes the physical deconditioning that can occur with very aggressive treatments. That's a very common aspect of a lot of people who've had a long battle with cancer. You're just physically so deconditioned and weak. So yes, the anxiety, depression is there, but you do still have to establish what the physical impairments are to get around that limitation.
So, in summary, Stephen, what we do for people who have been diagnosed with cancer, again, applying for benefits is usually not going to be a challenge. We certainly help people to do that. It's more about the people, as you said, that are in remission or have treatment under control, and the disability carrier thinks that they should be able to return to work at that point, is where we help most of the people, which comes down to the denials or keeping people on claim. We always offer a free initial consultation, no matter where you live in the country. We're available to review a copy of your disability policy, or if you've been denied, we will review your denial letter and we'll let you know right away how we can assist you. We also encourage you to spend some time on our website and search your disability company, search your medical condition, or search your occupation. We have lots of articles that we've written about cases that we've resolved, lawsuits around the country for people with your similar condition that we've summarized. We also have reviews about your company, as well as questions and answers that people regularly post on our website and our lawyers answer right away. So we look forward to the opportunity to speak with you in the future should you need us, and we'll be here when you need us. Thank you so much.